How is anybody in this country supposed to prosper that's not already wealthy? Could someone tell me that?
Inflation is way down. The biggest thing is inflation. The second biggest thing is energy. Energy is way down. And what's also down? Gasoline. Also, the biggest thing is inflation, and it's way down. The reason I don't want to talk about affordability is because everybody knows that it's far less expensive under Trump than it was under sleepy Joe Biden.
We're here to talk about America's economic comeback, and ladies and gentlemen, we needed an economic comeback in the United States of America. We needed it. When we talk about all the wage growth, when we talk about all the people who are coming into the United States to invest in the American worker, we've got real money, real jobs, and real opportunity.
Most Americans don't feel broke when they check their bank balance. They feel it when they hesitate at the grocery store, when they delay a doctor's visit, when they say, "I'll do it next month," for the 5th month in a row. Your paycheck still shows up. Your job still exists. But somehow the space between earning and living keeps getting tighter. 3 or 4 years ago, the same paycheck felt workable. You could plan, you could breathe, you could make it to the end of the month without constantly checking your balance. Today, that same income feels fragile. One unexpected bill is enough to throw everything off. Not because you made bad choices, not because you suddenly became irresponsible, but because every expense quietly learned how to ask for more at the exact same time. Rent didn't explode in one headline moment. It rose a little, then a little more. Debt didn't appear overnight. It crept in through higher interest, minimum payments, and things that couldn't be postponed. Groceries didn't double all at once. They just stopped going back down. Life didn't collapse. It got heavier, slowly, consistently, almost invisibly. And that's why so many Americans feel uneasy right now. Not panicked, just tense. Like they're doing everything they're supposed to do, yet falling slightly behind anyway. And when millions of people feel that pressure at the same time, it stops being an individual struggle and starts becoming a warning sign. Now, before we go deeper, let me be clear about the purpose of this video. This is not a prediction of an inevitable crash. It's not a call to panic, and it's not fear-driven content designed to grab attention. This is about understanding pressure, how it forms, how it spreads, and why it shows up in people's lives long before it shows up in official reports. If you felt like you're working harder just to stand still, this video is for you. Because when financial pressure becomes widespread, it changes behavior. Spending slows, saving stops, risk tolerance disappears, and those shifts matter, not just for households, but for the entire economy. The question isn't whether people are struggling. The question is whether this pressure is temporary or whether it's pointing towards something bigger in 2026. The struggle isn't sudden, and it isn't your fault. Let's break down why so many Americans feel broke right now. Most Americans don't feel broke because something dramatic happened. There was no sudden collapse, no single mistake, no moment where everything went wrong. What changed was the environment around them. The cost of simply existing started rising faster than paychecks could keep up. Raises happened, but they were quietly absorbed by rent increases, higher grocery bills, insurance premiums, and everyday expenses that didn't feel optional anymore. At the same time, debt stopped being about lifestyle upgrades and started becoming a survival tool. Credit cards weren't used for vacations. They were used to smooth over gaps between paychecks, to handle emergencies, to keep routines intact. And slowly, without people realizing it, savings accounts began shrinking. Not because people were careless, but because there was always something more urgent pulling from them. This is why so many Americans feel exhausted rather than irresponsible. They didn't suddenly lose discipline. The system around them changed, and it changed quietly. When enough people experience that pressure at once, it stops being a personal struggle and starts becoming an economic signal. So now that we understand why so many Americans feel squeezed, let's look at the numbers, the data that no one talks about. But that explains why life feels so much harder than it should. When you dig beneath the headlines, the numbers reveal something important. U.S. household debt just hit an all-time high of roughly $18.6 trillion, combining mortgages, credit cards, student loans, and home equity lines. That's an increase of nearly $200 billion in just one quarter. Credit card debt alone has surged past $1.23 trillion, and more people are carrying balances from month to month than in previous years. This isn't about spending on luxuries. It's about using credit just to cover groceries, rent, utilities, and everyday bills. A striking fact is about 1 in 3 Americans has more credit card debt than emergency savings. That means millions of households have little to no financial cushion if unexpected expenses hit, and it's not just credit cards. Buy now, pay later services, once marketed as convenience, are now covering daily necessities. Roughly 1 in 8 Americans rely on these installment options for groceries, utilities, or medical bills, adding another layer of hidden pressure. What this shows is simple but critical. Americans aren't broke because they failed. They're financially squeezed because paychecks aren't keeping pace with the rising cost of everyday life, and debt is quietly becoming a coping mechanism rather than a choice. Even if headline inflation looks stable, these trends reveal a slow-burning pressure affecting millions right now. Now that we've seen the silent pressures building across millions of households, it's important to put today's situation into context. Many people keep saying, this isn't 2008, and on the surface, they're right, but that doesn't mean the impact will be harmless. Back in 2008, the collapse was fast, dramatic, and visible. Housing prices plunged nearly 20% nationally in just a year, banks failed, and millions lost their jobs almost overnight. You could see the damage in headlines, in foreclosures, in empty neighborhoods. Today, the signs are different. The stress is slower, quieter, and less obvious. Housing affordability is strained, debt levels are historically high, and savings are thinner than ever. But defaults and job losses aren't spiking all at once. The system is quietly stretched to its limits, like a rubber band being pulled tighter every month. This is the key difference. Crashes don't always announce themselves with fireworks. Sometimes they appear as exhaustion. You notice it when paychecks no longer stretch, when rent takes up half of income, when local businesses start cutting hours, and when savings accounts disappear faster than they can rebuild. The risk is real because slow pressure can do as much damage as sudden collapse, sometimes more. It builds gradually, leaving households, businesses, and even local economies exposed before anyone fully realizes how fragile things have become. So while it doesn't feel like 2008, the reality is that quiet pressure today could still hurt, and the people who understand it early are the ones best prepared to weather what's coming. If you've ever wondered why you're working harder but still feeling like there's never enough, stay with me. What we've covered so far explains the silent pressures building in the background. Up next, we're going to break down exactly why this matters for 2026. Who is most exposed, what risks could hit first, and what you can watch for in your own life. This is the part where the picture starts to get real, and understanding it could make all the difference for your finances, your home, and your future. Most people don't see it coming. In fact, 99.9% of Americans aren't aware of how these pressures are quietly stacking up behind the scenes. So why does 2026 keep showing up in every serious analysis? It's not about one sudden disaster. It's about multiple stress points converging at the same time. First, there's debt rollover pressure. Millions of Americans carry short-term loans, credit card balances, and auto financing that need constant repayment. With interest rates staying higher for longer, the cost of rolling over that debt quietly strains household budgets. Second, consumer spending is slowing. Even small cutbacks ripple through the economy because everyday purchases, groceries, gas, utilities, drive so much business. When spending dips, jobs and wages feel it almost immediately. Third, housing affordability is still broken. Home prices haven't adjusted enough to match stagnant incomes, and rents continue to take bigger slices of household paychecks. Families feel squeezed even if prices aren't collapsing overnight. This isn't a sudden crash. It's stress stacking across multiple areas. And that slow convergence is exactly what could make 2026 a pivotal year for Americans financially. And now that we understand why 2026 could be a turning point, let's break down who feels this pressure first. Because this isn't just numbers on a page. It's real people in real situations experiencing the strain, and knowing where it shows up can help you make smarter decisions. Renters often feel it first. Rising rents, stagnant wages, and limited housing options mean even small cost increases hit hard. If your paycheck seems to stretch thinner each month, you're seeing this pressure in action. Homeowners might feel a little more stable with fixed mortgage payments, but higher interest rates on new loans, property taxes, and maintenance costs quietly eat into budgets. Timing matters more than ever if you're considering moving or refinancing. Families living paycheck to paycheck are especially vulnerable. Minor fluctuations, a utility bill, a car repair, or school expenses can quickly create stress. When multiple pressures converge, it starts to feel overwhelming. And that's exactly the pattern shaping 2026. Investors, whether in stocks, real estate, or small businesses, must pay attention too. Slowing consumer spending and tightening credit mean careful planning is essential, because risk comes not from one headline, but from how the system reacts when households feel the squeeze at once. And for anyone planning big life moves, buying a home, starting a family, or switching careers, understanding these pressures now can prevent frustration, lost money, or missed opportunities later. Seeing where pressure hits first lets you act early. Stay prepared and avoid being caught off guard, because most Americans won't realize it until it's too late. Now let's talk about what smart people are doing right now to stay ahead and retain control. While many Americans are feeling financially stretched, there are proactive steps people are taking right now to navigate these challenges effectively. First, reducing unnecessary debt. Focusing on paying down credit cards and short-term loans gives immediate breathing room, especially while interest rates remain high. Second, rebuilding cash buffers. Even a modest emergency fund turns daily stress into stability, allowing households to navigate slowdowns without feeling trapped. Third, watching local markets, not national headlines. Economic conditions differ city by city, county by county, and neighborhood by neighborhood. The smartest decisions come from understanding your immediate area, not chasing broad predictions. Finally, staying flexible, not fearful. Life rarely follows a perfect plan. Adjusting budgets, delaying discretionary purchases, or pivoting income streams allows people to retain control even as broader pressures rise. Understanding these pressures lets you make informed choices. You can't control everything, but you can control how prepared you are. And that's what separates those who feel powerless from those who act decisively. There we have it. I've tried to pack as much value as possible into this video by breaking down the pressures shaping 2026, from rising debt and stagnant wages to housing and consumer stress, so you can clearly see the bigger picture. Now it's your turn to take action. We create these videos every day for you, but less than 1% of viewers have subscribed so far. Show your support, like this video, subscribe, and share it with your friends and family so they can stay aware of what's coming. Also, have you noticed changes in prices, rents, or job conditions where you live? Drop your city and experiences in the comments below. Real-life insights like yours help everyone connect the dots that numbers alone can't explain. As we wrap up, remember, the goal isn't to predict a crash perfectly. It's about spotting pressure early, before panic takes hold. Staying informed, prepared, and grounded gives you control, even when uncertainty rises. Calm awareness is what turns stress into strategy. And if you want to take this further, check out our next video on the 12 states that will collapse first. You'll see it on the end screen. Don't miss it.